Warning for home buyers in 2025. We are seeing signs that the housing market could be having issues in a lot of the country. Inventory is rising. We're seeing some states have inventory levels the highest in 10 years. We're also seeing buyer demand decline. Debt to income ratios are almost as high as they were prior to the peak of the 2008 financial crisis. Today we're going to be diving into some of the data, getting an idea of where home values could be going over the next couple years, as well as what you need to be keeping an eye out for in your local market to determine whether or not buying a home in the area is actually a good idea. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ian Phillips. I'm a realtor in Southern California, and I'm uploading weekly videos diving into the housing market, talking about what's going on in the economy and how that relates to home values and the future of the housing market. If you're interested, subscribe for more, and let's get straight into the data. So first I want to take a look at this article because there's some interesting facts that is good to be aware of. So 2025 housing market risks echoes of 2008 is the title of this article. Several economic indicators signal increasing risks in the 2025 housing market. Debt to income ratios are a primary concern. In 2008, debt to income ratios averaged 43%, leaving borrowers vulnerable to payment shocks from risky adjustable rate mortgages as home values plummeted. Post-crisis reforms lowered the average to 35.5 in 2015, just under the 36% considered healthy benchmark for financial stability. However, today's debt-to-income ratio averages a little under 41%, which indicates that more than half of a household's disposable income is going toward debt service, aka their mortgage, which often serve lower income and first income borrowers. Debt to income ratios have surged to 45%. This is for Ginnie Mae loans. This is the highest since the 2008 financial crisis. So my warning to home buyers in this video is buying a home with a very low down payment and being careful not to overpay for a house in this current market. We have seen massive appreciation in the housing market over the last 4 to 5 years. Now, parts of the country are certainly cooling down and entering correction territory, so there could be areas where you're getting a pretty decent deal right now relative to the last 3 to 4 years. But I caution buyers stepping into the market with 0 down, 3.5% down, even 5% down mortgages, because if we see a minor correction, that would be 5 to 10%, which, by the way, I think is base case scenario for a lot of the country. We were already seeing that in places like Texas and Florida, where inventory is the highest it's been in over a decade. And those two states together are making up almost 40% of all homes available for sale in the country. So be careful if you're stepping into a home, shopping for a home with a very low down payment. And the reason I caution that is because if you have a 5 to 10% correction, you cannot refinance that mortgage if you're getting a conventional and other type of normal loans. Now, FHA loans, they typically can always be refinanced. But if you're getting a conventional loan and you end up being underwater on your mortgage, you will not be able to refinance that when we inevitably have lower mortgage rates, which as of right now are expected to happen end of this year or first half of 2026. I think they're anticipating high 5s in the first quarter of next year, low 6s by the end of this year. So I caution those buyers shopping for homes who are pre-approved with a very low down payment, because there is a pretty good chance that we're not going to see 10 to 15% appreciation in the housing market anymore. So if you are not too confident with that monthly payment that you are pre-approved for, in all honesty, I probably wouldn't be buying a home. If your debt to income ratio is approaching these levels that we're seeing right here, between 40 and 50% on your pre-approval, I wouldn't be buying a house right now. I think now is the time to be cautious when stepping into a home. Don't get yourself into a bidding war situation, ending up significantly overpaying for a house. This is not the market to do that in. Now I want to take a look at existing homes available for sale and the month supply of inventory, because that is a key indicator as to where the housing market could be going. So right now we're sitting at a little around 1.4 million homes available for sale. Month supply of inventory, which is the indication of supply and demand. It tells us how many homes are coming to the market relative to how many homes are being sold. As month supply increases, it tells me that inventory is outpacing the number of buyers that are stepping into the market right now. Now, as you can see, we are below the historical average of around 2 million homes available for sale and nowhere near the financial crisis levels of 4 million homes on the market. But I do want to caution buyers stepping into certain markets right now because what scares me is new construction homes available for sale. New developments are slashing prices, offering the most amount of incentives I have ever seen in my life. I'm in an escrow right now and they're offering a 15% discount relative to what is available for sale in the exact same neighborhood. And they're also paying for all of their closing costs, giving them free solar, buying down their mortgage rate, and paying for 1 year of the HOA upfront. Now, buying a home on the market, you're not getting anywhere near that. So in my opinion, I probably would not be buying a house, an existing house for sale in a neighborhood where there is a lot of new construction. Because as you can see, new development, new inventories available for sale is approaching financial crisis levels. We are not far off. Right now, there's 500,000 new homes available for sale. And right before the housing market crashed, leading up to 2008, there were 560,000 homes available for sale. So a 10% increase would get us to the levels prior to the housing crash, where it was essentially buy one, get one free in the real estate market. Now, sure, parts of the country didn't experience as much of a crash, but overall the housing market dropped around 50%. In all honesty, I don't think this is going to happen. However, it does concern me with states and cities where there's a lot of new construction happening for the buyers getting into a home where it's already on the market. Because as inventory for new developments continue to increase, they're going to carry on slashing prices, offering incredible incentives for buyers. So as a buyer, if you're in that area where there's new developments, for you, it's probably a no-brainer to jump into a new home because it's significantly less money out of pocket. It's a lower priced home and you can probably get a lower mortgage rate. So why wouldn't you buy a new development so why wouldn't you buy a new build relative to what's on the market already? Which concerns me for prices in those areas, because as new developments continue to drop prices, continue to offer incentives, those homes that are already on the market, if the sellers need to sell, they are 100% going to be slashing prices to get that home sold, which in turn will drop the median home value in the entire area. We're already seeing this happen in Texas and Florida, where a record amount of homes are having price cuts and almost no homes are selling for above list price. These are areas where there's a lot of new construction happening. And that is why, in my opinion, we're seeing inventory skyrocket. My concern also is for those states that don't have caps on property tax increases. I think places like Texas, the home buyers who bought 10 years ago, their property values, their property taxes have doubled because property taxes adjust with the market value. Places like California, where you're not really seeing inventory skyrocket that much, we're still below pre-pandemic levels. We have a cap on property taxes. There is a limit to how much your property tax can increase every single year. So for those buyers who are buying a home, they're qualifying based on those property taxes, you know for a fact that it's going to stay relatively the same for the next 10, 20, 30 years. But when you buy a home in Texas, your property taxes adjust every single year. So those homeowners who qualified 5, 10 years ago on those property tax basis, it's double in some areas, which is really awful for homeowners there. So that is another reason why I think there are so many homes hitting the market, because you saw prices skyrocket in Texas in 2020, 2021, and the first half of 2022. And as a result, property taxes also skyrocketed. So there is a lot of factors to consider when stepping into the housing market right now. If you're a buyer shopping for a home, you're wondering what to do, my opinion, look for those homes that are sitting on the market for 60, 90 days. Maybe they've had one price cut, maybe no price cuts. Start offering 5, 10% below list price, because when I'm doing this, we're getting counters from the seller, which means they don't want to lose that offer. They want to make something happen. And I think areas where you're seeing inventory skyrocket, where it's the highest it's been for 10 years, it might actually be better just to kind of wait and see what happens in that market. But Areas where you're still seeing demand pretty high, inventory is maybe at a 3-year high, 4-year high, you're not really seeing inventory skyrocketing. That's a great time to step into the market, have some negotiating power, because for the first time in really 5 years, buyers have a lot of control in this market. You can get your mortgage rate bought down by the seller, ask them for a credit, reduce your closing costs, get a discount on the purchase price. All of these are opportunities for home buyers in 2025. Now keep in mind, mortgage rates are expected to drop in the second half of this year and into 2026. So if we do have a stable unemployment rate, then and mortgage rates continue to drop, you're probably going to see inventory get bought up. If the job market is strong, if mortgage rates are lower, the people are overall confident about the economy, there's going to be a lot more buyers stepping in relative to what we're having right now. Speaking of the unemployment rate, let's take a look at that because it is key for what happens during recessions. Now, as we can see, during the financial crisis, the unemployment rate absolutely skyrocketed. It went from 4.7% to 10% in a matter of 2 years. If something like this were to occur right now, you would absolutely see a housing crash. But as of right now, we have just had a steady increase from 3.4% to 4.2%. And all of these gray sections are recessions, So when you look at areas in time where you had a pretty decent recession, it was always brought on by the unemployment rate rising. This was the dot-com bubble. But what's interesting about this one is the unemployment rate didn't really get out of control. It sort of peaked around 6%. And house prices just had a neutral year or two. They didn't really appreciate, they didn't really decline, it was just kind of flat. So if we enter potentially a period like these two recessions here, then home values could be very neutral. Now, I've already said I don't think we're going to have 10, 15, 20% appreciation every year like we've had for the last 3 to 4 years in a lot of markets. I think we're just going to be neutral to modest appreciation over the next 2 to 3 years in most markets. Now, areas where inventory is at a 10-year high and continuing to increase, you're probably going to have a pretty decent correction, if not a crash. A correction is 10 to 15%. A crash is 25 to 30% or more. So unemployment, your local market, is very important to keep an eye on. See what's going on in your local economy. Where I live, for example, in Orange County, California, the unemployment rate has been going down for the last year. So the job market is very strong here. Inventory is at a 3-year high, but it's not really going past that. And that is good news for buyers because we've had record low inventory for the last 3 years. So when you see a strong jobs market, inventory slightly increasing, you're probably just going to trend toward a neutral market. But when you see inventory skyrocketing at a 10-year high, unemployment increasing, mortgage rates still around 7%, that's a recipe for a housing correction. And that is happening in parts of the country. Now, could we get some reprieve when mortgage rates inevitably come down? Because they will come down, it's just a matter of time. Probably, but the Federal Reserve right now, who is in charge of interest rate cuts, is really stuck between a rock and a hard place. They don't want to repeat the scenarios like we had over here between the 70s and 80s when we had record high inflation and mortgage rates ended up going to 18%. They don't want to cut rates too soon in case that spurs on a second wave of inflation where they would have to start hiking interest rates, and that would be devastating for the economy and for the housing market. But they also don't want to cut rates too late because then you end up in a scenario where unemployment is skyrocketing like it did in the dot-com bubble and like it did during the financial crisis. Now, this period of time, yeah, we got up to 6% unemployment, and if that occurs, we'd probably see mortgage rates around 5% because the Fed would probably cut rates, I would guess, between 6 and 8 times to stop the unemployment rate from getting out of control. But again, if they cut rates too late, they could end up with unemployment skyrocketing. So it's sort of a balancing act that the Fed is playing right now. They're kind of just waiting to have that data confirm inflation going solidly down below 2% and the unemployment starting to increase ever so slightly. Maybe we get to 4.5%, maybe 5% within the next year, and then they could solidly cut rates 4 to 6 times, which would give a lot of reprieve for home buyers right now. But my opinion, You want to keep an eye on your market. Take a look at the month's supply of inventory because that is the indicator that tells you what's going on with active listings as well as buyer demand. It takes into account number of homes available for sale as well as number of homes getting sold. So that is the key indicator that you need to keep an eye on. If inventory is skyrocketing, if you're in Texas and Florida where inventory is at a 10-year high, open Zillow, see what's going on in your neighborhood, see how many homes are having price drops, see how many homes are sitting on the market for 90, 100, 120 days. That will tell you what is going on in your local market. If you're in an area where inventory is still fairly low, open up Zillow. Maybe homes are selling within 30 days. Maybe homes are selling within 60 days, only one price reduction. Maybe homes are having a modest drop. Maybe they drop the house by 2% and the house gets into escrow the following weekend. These are all things that are pretty easy to keep an eye on in your local market. But that's kind of it for my warning for home buyers in 2025 and how you can navigate the real estate market that we're in right now. If you like this video, subscribe for more and I'll see you next time.